Well,
good.
I was trying to do it on the computer, but it won't work. So I've just put my iPhone on.
Good. Hi, Judy.
Good.
Hi, Judy.
Hello, Judy. Hi, Danny.
Hi, everybody.
Hello there.
Hey.
I'm just getting a notebook.
Ah.
Oh,
Like your backdrop, Cat.
Oh, it's not bad, is it?
No. You feel like Mars or Venus. Which one do you think you're on?
Where do I think we are? Not sure.
Yeah, which planet do you think you'd like to be on if you could choose?
Oh, well, Mars is very attractive. It's
Yeah.
a bit of a desert landscape, but both of them for living on, you know, the pressure on Venus is bad, but apparently in the clouds is just about right. That's where the life might be, is in the clouds on Venus, not the surface. Too much pressure on the surface, and I think possibly roasting hot, but in the clouds is good.
Yeah, you could get a little cell, couldn't you, suspended up somehow? And
I thought I'd just get some sort of airship and just cruise around the clouds of Venus for the rest of time. That sounds all right.
we've got 24 participants now, so I think we could start online.
Right, I'm going to mute and stop video for me because we're recorded now, aren't we? I see some people have done that already.
Nikki, do you want to give any notes or anything?
Yes, I'll just give a little start up. So just a little bit of admin Blue Monkey time. Is just to say, I've already just mentioned very briefly for those that weren't on earlier, is that we've got a workshop coming up in May, which will be the May event. You do need to pay, I think it's £15 it's only for members at the moment. Elizabeth Doak is on my screen, she's just below me, but is here tonight. So she's going to run a how to photograph your work workshop. We've got 6 spaces, 3 have gone already, or is it 4 now? 4 have gone already. If anybody would like to, please email me if you'd like to come along. It really, you know, it'll be a very sort of intimate workshop, just 6 people, how to photograph your artwork, whatever type of work that is. So that's coming up in May. And to say we haven't got a formal event in April, but at the weekend, the Regenerate Monkey exhibition will go live on the website. And we will share how you can access that if it's not obvious on our social media. And it's looking really fabulous. So that's your sort of task for April, is to have a look at the exhibition, because not all the work will be at the in real life exhibition at Vault in July. So you'll see a bit more work when you look online. So that's that really. Admin for tonight, just if you're not, I think we will have muted you anyway if you haven't done it yourself. And if people want captioning, it might help just to be able to hear if you can't hear clearly what's going on. If people don't know, that's just at the bottom of your screen, and it says CC captions or something at the bottom of the screen. And when Aggie does share her screen with all the slides on, it's quite handy if you change your view in the top right hand corner to be what is it, speaker only rather than gallery, because then it will take all of us off the screen, and you'll be able to see the full amount of the slides rather than having a column on the right with people's faces on. I think that's everything. It's all being recorded. If you've got any questions, we're going to take them at the end and let Aggie just go all the way through with her presentation. If there's anything you just think, oh, that's really great, or I'm not going to remember to ask a question, at the bottom you've got the chat box. You can just type in the chat box, and then at the end we'll go back to the chat box and just check if there's any questions that we want to just ask of Aggie or anybody else who's in the room effectively. I think that's everything.
yeah, except that in the chat as well, that Agata's provided us very kindly with a list of resources, and that is in a PDF file in the chat. So if people want to download that, it's right at the top of the chat when they go in there.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay.
Right, shall we start?
Yeah, I'm just going to do a quick introduction, Aggie, actually.
Oh, okay.
So Aggie, for those that don't know, is a member of the Blue Monkey Network. She was born in Gdansk in Poland, and I think I'm right in saying moved to England in 2006.
I did.
She's based in St Leonards, and in her sort of, I think her big achievement of the last few years is in 2022, she completed her PhD in practice-based PhD, you call it, I think, at the from the Academy of Fine Arts in Gdansk. Her interests include feminism and thread, as well as the process of intervening with the material structure of photographs. If you want to find out more about her work, you can follow her on Instagram, and she is at Agata Read. So I'm going to hand over to Aggie and mute myself. Thank you.
Right. Hello. Thank you. Thank you, Nikki, for the introduction. I will share my screen, I think, and see if everything's all right. There. And I hope there's no problems with that.
Looks good to me, Aggie.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, good. Let me just minimize so I can. Yeah. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming along. I have suggested doing a talk on importance of archive for artists, as I've been recently working with Hastings Museum and their photography archive. So I have been gathering some information and researching this subject. It is quite a personal interest of mine and of you, and I don't feel like an expert in this field at all. So please feel free to add or correct me during my talk. I just sort of gather my recent thoughts and research. And at the end, there will be time, I believe, for questions and discussions. And I quite always look forward that part, really. So first, I would like to share some thoughts I gathered throughout the process of my research, and a little bit on a general idea of the archive, but most on the different artistic approaches on working with archive. And I will talk about a few different concepts of the archives that artists respond to, and I will mention some projects and artists I particularly like. Because of my background and practice, I will talk probably a little bit more about working with photography, but definitely not just photography archives. And I will finish with sharing some of my work and just what I've been doing with Hastings Museum and Art Gallery. And I also as Steph mentioned, there's a PDF, but it's got names of all the artists that I've mentioned in my talk, and also some of the resources of the archive that are accessible. So as an artist, I've previously worked with my family archive. I have inherited both my father's extensive photo archive and also my grandfather's. And possibly this family archive made me ask a simple question, basically, what do I do with it? Am I supposed to do anything with it? And I think for quite a long time, I had this feeling that my old family photos are the objects for which there is no satisfactory resolution. I found this quote in one of Joan Didion's books, Blue Nights, I think it was, and she refers to various mementos, things that are left behind by loved ones, accumulated over time in boxes and drawers, the personal archives. And gradually, while researching different artists' work with archives, I have concluded that images, just like objects, can have several lives, that we can pick them up, put them in different contexts, and they live there for a while until us or someone else will put them in a completely different context. And that thought was actually very freeing. I realized that I don't have to do anything with the archive, but I can, and I can do several times different things. I started thinking of archives as photography archives, but archives archive is, of course, much older than the medium of photography. In the form of lists, inventories, and administrative tools, records, archives have a history that is almost as old as that of humans. In the 19th century, the archive underwent the fundamental transformation. What happened was an increased rationalization and its instrumentalization for scientific and quasi-scientific purposes. The reason it happened was, one, the invention of photography, and two, expansion of European colonialism. This is what is known now as modern archive. Although there are many ways we can think about archives, I make one major classification first, family archive and institutional archive. While family archives offer a personal, intimate look at individual and familial histories, institutional archives provide a broader, more formalized record of organizational, cultural, or social histories. Both types of archives are invaluable for research, education, and preserving historical memory, but they differ significantly in their focus, management, and accessibility. Archives, both family and institutional, play an important role in the arts, serving as both a source of inspiration and a medium for artists, while preserving the cultural heritage and historical context of artistic practices. How can archives serve arts? Archives can be simply the source of inspiration for artists when they create new work inspired by existing archives. Artists often use the archival material, photographs, letters, film footage, and other ephemera, all that is incorporated into artworks, giving them new life and meaning. Archive could serve as the exploration of personal or collective identity and memory. Through family archives, artists can delve into their ancestry and heritage, while institutional archives offer a lens through which to examine a broader social and cultural identities. The acts of remembering and the mechanism of history are central themes in many artists' work with archives. Artists challenge, reinterpret, and sometimes contest historical narratives, offering alternative perspectives or highlighting forgotten stories. A lot of recent work based on that theme is touching post-colonial identities and rebuilding the archive while thinking about the ways we can address historical issues with colonialism. Looking at what is missing, looking basically at what is missing in the archive. All that can be done with work based on the content of the archive, but there are also interesting ways that artists responded to concepts with the archival theory. So we can look at storage, and we have Duchamp creating his box in valise, a portable museum. The work consists of a brown leather carrying case containing 69 reproductions of the major works by Duchamp, including many photographs, lithographs, and miniature replicas of ready-mades like Fountain, but also Christian Boltanski and his reference vitrine series. With this series of works, Boltanski turned himself into the archivist of his own work and his own past, in a similar way to Duchamp approach when making his boxes. But whereas Duchamp made use of the idea of the archival box, Boltanski made use of the idea of museum vitrine. Then we can look at the concept of listings. And one work I find really interesting is a book by Lien Shapton titled Important Artifacts and Personal Property from the collection of Leonor Doolan and Harold Morris. It comes in a form of an auction catalogue. It is fundamentally a list that contains and arranges the 332 auction lots by numbering them. At first sight, the listings seem to have no other than the numbering of the archival, no other order than the numbering of the individual items. But then, reading the descriptions of each lot, it becomes clear that the different objects are presented in a more or less chronological order. but based on documents and information found in archive, a particular history is reconstructed. It is the story of a relationship between Leonor and Harold through photographs of the couple's personal effect, the usual auction items, jewelry, fine art and rare furniture, and the seemingly worthless pyjamas, post-it notes. The story of a failed love affair emerges. From first meeting to final separation, the progress and rituals of intimacy are revealed through the couple's accumulated relics and memorabilia. And the love story in its all tenderness and struggle emerges from the evidence that has been left behind. Classification is the next concept taken by artists, creating often heterotopian archives. Example of such work could be Idessa Hendel's archival installation, Partners, the Teddy Bear Project. Installation consists of thousands of snapshots, each of which include the image of a teddy bear, arranged according to more than 100 typologies. The installation is structured like a presentation of natural history of all cultural objects in a classic traditional natural history museum. The pictures in the collection, all of which Hendel's found on eBay between 1999 and 2001, are drawn from a personal collections and family albums, and are sorted into groups according to subject, posture, setting, and numerous other taxonomic criteria, creating, according to the artist, 122 typologies in all. These include categories as unexpected as early 20th century women's basketball teams posing with teddy bears, wedding parties with teddy bears, nude women with teddy bears, soldiers with teddy bears, portraits of seated dog with teddy bears, humans dressed as teddy bears, bears treated as teddy bears, and so on. The artist's enormous curatorial feat is a reminder that the convention employed by museums are the tools of authority. They tell us which art is important art and what history is true history. Next, the idea of administration, management, control, archiving time. In January 1966, the Japanese conceptual artist On Kawara began his iconic, critically acclaimed body of work, collectively known as Today's Series. The paintings bear the date each was executed. The date is always painted in white on a monochrome canvas. Each painting is stored in a matching cardboard box of a type that is typically archival and used in archive. Each box also includes a cutting selected by Kawara from a local newspaper, dating from the day on which painting was executed. Kawara's later work shows his obsession for letting information generate more information, more structure. He starts journals, notebooks, documenting the paintings in terms of the colors, dates, and titles, which can derive from the accompanying newspaper clipping or more personal data. He titles them, for example, I got up at 12:53 p.m. and painted this. He models himself on the image of archivist. He is the archivist of passing time, of personal time, as well as historical time. Another painter came immediately to my mind, another who explored making art through systems, Roman Opałka. In 1965, in his studio in Warsaw, Opałka began painting numbers from 1 to infinity, starting in the top left-hand corner of the canvas and finishing in the bottom right-hand corner. The tiny numbers were painted in horizontal rows. Each new canvas, with the which artists called detail, took up counting where the last left off. Each detail had the same size, the dimension of his studio door in Warsaw. All details have the same title. The project had no definable end, and the artist pledged his life to its ongoing execution. All my work is a single thing, the description from number 1 to infinity, a single thing, a single life. The problem is that we are and are about not to be. He had contemplated and tried many different ways to visualize time before setting on his on this life's work. Before his death, on August the 6th, 2011, Opałka had reached past the number 5,500,000. And integral to his project are his photographic self-portraits taken at the end of each work session, where we see Opałka with the canvas he is working on in the background. Now, with the archival organization, a complete depletion of individual identity can take place. That characteristic of archive sparked artists' great interest, but have a very dark origin. In 1956, the documentary film by Alain René has been released, Night and Fog. It was the first film about Holocaust, the deportation and the extermination camps. The director added black and white newsreel footage to recount the story of the century's distinctive form of rationalized barbarism, from the rise of Hitler and the Third Reich program of deportations and exterminations to the Nuremberg trials, and interacts it with his own contemporary color footage. Another element is also introduced, a book of administration and recording, numbers and lists. Soon after the book is seen, footage is shown of different storage areas in the camps. Night and Fog seem to have initiated the now almost unavoidable association of archival organizations with the deletion of identity. And that leads us to Christian Boltanski. Boltanski started working in 1960s and was certainly familiar with René's film. He consistently presents his work as a product of an archivist. Boltanski was born to a Catholic mother and Jewish father in Paris in 1944. Shortly after the city was liberated from German occupation during the Second World War. Adopting quasi-archaeological or sociological strategies, his work have often been viewed as investigations into history and memory with explicit reference to the Holocaust. Boltanski's installations, constructed from perishable materials such as photographs, discarded clothes, cardboard boxes, and candles, reflect an ambiguous interweaving of Jewish and Christian references, personal and collective memories, light and darkness, death, memory, and childhood. Death, memory, and childhood are his major themes, and they are presented by means of black and white photographs, particularly amateur snapshots of anonymous people. In contrast to mentioned earlier reference vitrines, installation with photographic portraits do not have indexicality as the basic semiotic way of functioning. Instead, photographic portraits are icons. Chase High School is a good example of his archival installations of photographic portraits. For this work, Boltanski used a photograph of the graduating class of a private Jewish school that he found in a book of the Jews in Vienna. The installation consisted of 8 blurry black and white close-ups of the students. He rephotographed the students individually, enlarging their faces until they lost their individual features. It is more than likely that most of, or even all of the Jewish students represented did not survive the Holocaust. By referring to a factual reality, Boltanski qualifies himself as a historian or an archivist. Boltanski's best known but also most provocative archival installation dealing with the Holocaust is a non-referential or non-historical way is his work, The Dead Swiss. For this work, he cut out obituaries from Swiss newspaper. He said, "There is nothing more normal than Swiss. There is no reason for them to die. So they are more terrifying in a way. They are us." Boltanski helps us to understand why the museum can be such an effective tool. Like archives, museums, especially historical museums, confront the viewer with decontextualized objects. They are showing us objects which evoke the absence of the world of which they were part. But they also can use the archive for the depletion of memory. I will now talk a little about Carmen Wynand. I came across her work while researching the field of feminist photography, and I am still quite taken by her work. Carmen Wynand is an artist, writer, and a professor in a Department of Visual and Contemporary Art at Columbus College. Her artistic practice, apart from being clearly focused on the physical form of the photographic image, is also based on borrowing or adoption. The artist does not work with her own images, but with those carefully collected, acquired, and selected. Most photographs used by Wynand date back to 60s and 70s. In recent years, she worked with archives of found images to produce two radical photo books, My Birth, which depicts the often invisible experience of labor and childbirth, and Notes on Fundamental Joy, a project that forefronts the photographs made by lesbian feminist separatists in the 70s and 80s. But the works of hers I particularly like are those where she is working very closely with the physical form of a photograph. For example, in the series of works titled Togethering, she uses found images related to touch. Touch is our first teacher. Long before language takes hold, we absorb lessons in pleasure, pain, comfort, love, and fear through our skin. Despite its primacy in our early lives, however, touch remains one of our least appreciated senses, a function, perhaps, of its Western reputation as a primitive or feminine means of perception, a second-class citizen to the supposedly more rational faculties like sight or hearing. To create the 12 works from this series, Wynand used mostly black and white pictures from 60s books on feminism, healing, and spirituality, cut them into irregular triangles, squares, diamonds, petals, and discs, and arranged them on steel plates in patterns inspired by New Age mandalas. Photos of people dancing, stretching, drumming, embracing, and bathing outdoors, alongside pictures of nudist groups, therapeutic rituals, nursing infants, outstretched arms, arched faces, and countless hands, grids, and pathways within notched aluminium frames. Touch was closely linked with the act of creation in these works. Another example of her work is the making and unmaking of the world, which compromises 9 mobiles and 8 large framed collages that incorporate photographs cut out from 70s instructional books on the subject of craft. Example, pottery, mask making, weaving, puppetry, and basketry. Also included in the show is a wall-sized site-responsive installation, The Actual World, a constellation of the book pages that were used to create the mobile pieces. I think in the PDF I've sent, I might have included the link to her 5-minute talk about this exhibition. I encourage you to find her. She is a really, really good talker, and I like to listen to her. But she also, apart from this sort of work, she also produces works like this. Wynand's archival impulse here include the desire to collect and care for these photographs while also taking them apart to reconstitute them into a new form of archive. Marta Bogdańska. I would like to share her project Shifters. Shifters is her ongoing project, a continuation of an interest in espionage and its legacies. This project started with a collection of articles published between 2005 and to this day that refer to animal spies. She started collecting and archiving materials about animals used in various public services in times of war. It resulted, apart from many exhibitions, in a whopping 750 pages photo book questioning our relationship with animals. Building on concepts such as Eric Baratre's History from the Animal Point of View or Foucault's Biopolitics, as well as new materialist and feminist theories, she explores ethical exploration of the presence of animals within the machinery of Western defense institutions from the late 19th century to the 1970s. I think what I like about this project is the sheer scale of research she has done and the incredible images she managed to find. Next is the Larry Sultan and Mike Mendel book, Evidence. This book has a near to cult status among photo book enthusiasts. In 1977, photographers Larry Sultan and Mike Mendel published a book that would radically transform both photography and photo book canon. A book described by Martin Parr as one of the most beautiful, dense, and puzzling photo books in existence, an endless visual box of tricks. Sultan and Mendel sift through thousands of photographs in the files of Bechtel Corporation, the Los Angeles Police Department, the Jet Propulsion Laboratories, the US Department of the Interior Stanford Research Institute, 100 other corporations, American government agencies, and educational, medical, and technical institutions. They were looking to for photographs that were made and used as transparent documents, purely objective instruments, as evidence. Selecting 59 of the best, they published these images with the care you would expect to find in a high-quality art photography book, issuing them in 1977 in a simple limited edition volume titled Evidence. It's really incredible book and often used when talking about sequencing photography projects. It's long established as a seminal example of conceptual photography. It also kind of proves that a clever approach to existing work that lie in institutions, homes, anywhere, can be transformed into outstanding work of art. And Mark Dion is the last artist I would like to mention. He works close to the concept of Natural History Museum, which is very much my field of interest at the moment. He was born in 1961 in America. He questions how we collect, interpret, and display nature. He adopted the methods of the archaeologist of the Natural History Museum, juxtaposing natural objects, taxidermy books, and more, to reorganize the natural and man-made in poetic, witty ways. The job of the artist, according to him, is to go against the grain of dominant culture, to challenge perception and the convention. One of Dion's first big projects was with Tate Britain in London. As part of Tate Modern's reopening program, Dion and a team of volunteers combed the shore of the river at Bankside in front of Tate Modern and Millbank, opposite Tate Britain, in search of artifacts and ephemeral buried and just things buried beneath the mud and gravel of its beaches. A wide variety of objects and fragments were uncovered, ranging from clay pipes, oyster shells, and cattle teeth, to plastic toys and shoes. Once collected and processed, Mark Dion created an artwork from the objects and artifacts. The finds are presented in an installation arranged in a mahogany cabinet alongside photographs of the beachcombers and tidal flow charts, organized loosely according to type, such bones, glassware, pottery. The viewer finds them in seemingly unhistorical and largely uninterpreted arrangements. Antique items sit alongside contemporary items, and etc. Each is a material witness performing the same function as historical proof. This lack of distinction is an important aspect of Dion's approach, and he resists the reading of history as a necessarily linear progression. The only differentiation is a geographical one, the two sites retaining their individual identities. The lack of historical categorization suggests a subversion of standard museological practice. Viewers are free to create their own association, to trace histories across time, not necessary in the linear direction. Now I'll talk a bit about my work in Hastings Museum. In February 2023, I was accepted for the very short residency in Hastings Museum. I proposed looking into their photo archive, but with the focus on exploring the marks and traces that emerged as a result of passing time and handling those objects. I was hugely influenced by a Polish artist, Jerzy Lewczyński, who in his work talked about something what he called archaeology of photography, a memory of the image. The idea is that the unintentional damage that is sustained by the object without the participation and knowledge of the author of a photograph, such as tears, scratches, spots, or losses of emotion, can tell a very personal and dramatic stories. I then focused on finding those marks and traces. I made a small series of work inspired by my experience in the museum and encounter with the archive. I have decided to look closer into photographs' imperfections, interesting marks and traces, and propose a physical and metaphorical process of mending, which are taking place on photographs, reproductions, of course. I made those findings yes, I found the inspiration in the Japanese technique called kintsugi, meaning golden seams, and of course sashiko, which was another Japanese way of mending, this time the textiles. So that was the result of this short residency, which actually is going to be on the view in the museum very soon. But during that time in the museum, that really 5-day-long residency, I was pointed in the direction of a few boxes of photographic glass plates that were in the storeroom. The ones that caught my attention were kept in wooden boxes in individual envelopes. I started looking through them and doing some research and discovered that they were all made by Edward Thomas Connolly. Edward Thomas Connolly was born in Castle Street in Hastings in June 1862 and died in St Leonards in 1910. Although he moved to various schools and various jobs, he returned permanently to St Leonards in 1885. He was an amateur scientist and keen botanist who earned his living as a grocer. Connell's diverse passions are evident through his extensive contributions to the Hastings and East Sussex naturalists. His interest extended to include shells, wasps, caterpillars, wildflowers, and marine life. Through his most important work was in a field of plant galls. Before his death, he was preparing work on British fruits, wild fruits, for publication. I saw some beautiful botanical images, but my residency has finished and I had to leave them. And so I was left wondering what options I had to be able to go back and work with the collection again, and came out with the idea that I would apply for the DYCP funding from Arts Council, which is Develop Your Creative Practice, with the idea of learning how to digitize glass plates. I applied and I was successful in my application. And in November, after I had some training, I was able to go back to the museum to further practice my skills. And I have spent now 30 days in total in the museum. I started with object recording and cataloging the collection, While this was part of the digitizing process, I also started scanning them. Object recording was simply photographing each envelope and glass plate, giving them the catalog number, and scanning was using the flatbed scanner every image. I have managed to record over 600 of the objects, which makes more than a half of the whole Connaught's collection. I have scanned only about 140 of them. Scanning, of course, is quite a time-consuming activity. It was important for me to create the highest quality of an image, as well as accessible smaller files. I have now a few days left, which are part of my DYCP funding opportunity. And those are committed purely to creating my artistic response to the collection. I have, in the meantime, been commissioned by the museum to create a digital museum activity based on Connaught's collection, and it came out with the idea of following in the footsteps of Edward Thomas Connaught. This activity basically is going to be launched in April. It's aimed mainly at families, but I thought because he was so particular with his envelopes, he would always write down where he found the plants and when. I thought it would be interesting to try and find the same plants in the same areas this 120 years later. In the meantime, I'm exploring all botany-related subjects. I investigate botanical illustration and the idea that it serves as a bridge between science and art. I also became aware that Marianne North was born in Hastings. She was a Victorian artist and botanist who travelled the world, breaking conventions and discovering new species of fauna and flora, rather than falling into traditional role of a Victorian woman. Over her 14 years of global travel and adventures, she created more than 800 paintings and even documented species that were not previously known to science. The collection of her paintings is held at the Royal Botanic Gardens in Kew, and they are truly stunning. I am really inspired and in awe of the work of Edward Connaught. And at the moment, I am in a similar position that I was after the residency. I really want to go back, finish digitizing the collection. I would like to organize an exhibition. I really would love to create an open source, accessible digital gallery that everyone could look through the images and basically use them if they would like. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you very much.
If you can unmute, we can
clap.
That was amazing. Fantastic.
really good.
Thank you.
Aggie, when is your work? Is it the Archive of Future Memories?
It is, yes. It's I've spent the so this part of my project was basically practicing and digitizing the collection. But now I've got this several days and some time that I want to spend basically having the artistic response to it, which I'm kind of itching to do, but there is no structure. I'm kind of fascinated by, the amalgam that I can see on the plates, or his finger, well, you know what I mean,
Fingerprints.
Fingerprints.
Yes, precisely, fingerprints that he left. So yeah, so there's a lot, or basically the structures that he built for the plants. So there's a lot, and I was even thinking that today when I was in the museum, that another thing I'm really fascinated about the negative as the final image.
Yeah.
You know, because I've been looking at negatives for so long. I've looked at the image today and I was looking at it. Is it negative or positive? You know, it's
Yeah.
kind of for the things like botanical photography from 120 years ago. If you think about it, that was supposed to be just informative. So it didn't really matter if it was negative or a positive, because you would still have the same shape. So information is still there.
Yeah.
So that concept really interests me as well.
One of the ways they used to present the glass place negatives was in front of a mirror. And when you stick them in front of a mirror with a bright background, they actually become positives.
Oh.
That sounds
Okay.
interesting.
Agata, when you said you're thinking about the project that goes to look at to see if those plants are in the same place, growing where he said they were.
Yeah.
Time of year. Do you think that information will be of use to people like climate change scientists, who it would be really good for the art to inform the science? Because I'm sure that like the seasons will have changed and the flowering times will have changed, and if you've got that 120-year gap, it's a really kind of valuable resource, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I'm kind of, you know, I'm putting up together the idea of applying for more funding. I think it's not only valuable for from the scientific point of view, but artistic point of view as well. And I quite really like that idea that, you know, with like botanical illustration, that's somewhere where these two meet, science and art. But funnily enough, I've noticed that actually, because I was thinking, oh, are we going to find the same plants in the same places? But it's not the plants, it's the time, it's the timings. They are completely off. That is, so that's about 2 months, you know, we got everything 2 months earlier than he did.
Have you been out looking for them then? Have you done that sort of as an activity yourself?
Well, no, because the activity is going to come out at sort of spring. So, but the thing like, you know, bluebells, and so mid-May, would you think you would still have bluebells as flowers, or would you just, yeah, so I haven't really went out because he, yeah, I didn't, yeah, it mostly flowering that he photographs, like flowering fruit trees and things like that, which we have. I was trying to find something that you can go out and find for sure. So like blackberries, he's done the fruit and the flower. So I thought if I put that out, surely you can find one of them.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the really good ones to look for in terms of time sequence in the year is blackthorn and hawthorn. Because when they're both, there's a point where they're both in flower, and they're actually really difficult to tell between the other.
Okay.
Comes out slightly earlier, and the flower comes out before the leaves. With the leaves come out before the flower, and it's quite an interesting sequence. And moving down from the northeast, in the northeast we call hawthorn Mayflower, but it tends to come out early April, mid-April here.
Yeah,
easily a month earlier. And
What is that saying, isn't there? Never cast a cloud till May is out. And it means the May flower, not the month of May.
yeah.
How technically, how do you digitize a glass plate?
Well, you can do it 2 ways really. I'm putting them on a flatbed scanner on an anti-Newton ring glass, but you can basically put them also on LED light up surface and re-photograph them and then process them. I think it depends on quantity. I started doing the flatbed because that's a collection which is, it's not kind of never ending. It's got about 1,200, maybe 1,000 plates. And but I know the lady who runs the project of digitizing the Reeves collection in Lewis. The photo studio, that's the oldest existing working photo studio with the massive archive. She is doing the basically photographing them on a flatbed because they've got thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of them.
Wow.
So yeah, that's how I do it.
Do they have to do them all individually, or can they do them in blocks?
How do they do it? I think they've got several teams of volunteers. There's yeah, it's an interesting project because it's also quite, I mean, you've got really like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Victorian men sitting in a studio, you know, you're kind of like, wow. But he's got actually the whole history of photography in his studio as well. So from yeah, when it started.
I thought it was quite interesting that, especially in the very big archives, whether it's the woman who did the teddy bears or it's an official archive of some sort, that when it becomes very big, it's full of individuals who then become de-individualized because they're in the archive. But then I was remembered, I don't know if you've ever read Jose Saramago, All the Names. He's a Portuguese author writing during the sort of dictatorship. And he has a book called All the Names. And it's a civil servant, it's a labyrinthine sort of archive where everybody has to have a card associated with them. And it's very impersonal and it's a sort of political comment. But suddenly this lonely civil servant becomes obsessed with one anomaly in a card with one young woman. And then the whole thing becomes personalized in a very strange way. It has an effect on him, whereas before he was like a little cog in this machine. So it's a fascinating novel to read in that respect about archives.
There's a question in the chat from April. Are you still on here, April? I'm not sure if you are.
She might have gone. I can tell you if she's.
Sorry, I've can you?
I am. Yeah, I was still muted. Yeah, my question was because the your presentation covered such a huge range of different artists. I wondered what was the sort of link for you to put them together in this presentation. Like you had Marianne North, botanical things that you did, and then Christian Boltanski, very different.
Agata, are you okay? Oh. Did you hear that, Agata?
I've lost her.
I think I did. Yeah, I think it's my internet. It's been very jumpy recently here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Did you hear the question?
Did you hear the question, Aggie?
I think she's frozen again.
Yeah. Oh, can we hear? We can't hear you, Aggie.
I don't know if you can hear me.
We can now. We've got you back now.
Yeah, it's yeah. Sorry, but I don't. Oh, it's just actually a good job that it didn't happen during the presentation.
That's good.
Yeah, I think I've heard. I kind of you are all frozen, but I might hear you. I think your question was that, well, I've got the beginning and the concepts. I got all this rough from a book about artistic approaches to archive. And then I kind of chose the artists that I particularly liked and basically talked about my recent interest at the end. So that was the only key, I think.
Aggie, could I ask if there, in your experience, are there a lot of artists that use archives? Is it a really big thing? Is it like a movement? No, I've lost her again.
Yes, sorry. It seems
That's okay, you're back.
it's really annoying because it was all right for such a long time and suddenly nothing has changed and well, it's just these things. Can you?
Yeah.
I didn't hear the question though. Sorry, Steph.
I was saying, do you think that there is a whole movement towards artists using archives? Is it a big thing? Not something that I've been I've been aware of that it was such a big thing. I
think it's one of these things that I think it's always been there, but once you start getting into it, you start finding more and more. And I think it's one of these, you know, when you start looking for something and you're thinking of making something, suddenly it's everywhere. There's a name for it. I've forgotten at the moment. But yeah, once I got into it, there's a conference coming up in September that I really want to listen, and that's again on the archives affecting like contemporary art. So I think there is, and I think it's it's kind of it's a natural sort of cycle of an image of an object. I kind of quite like that about it. Yeah. I sometimes think like having all this archive at home, the family archive, that I haven't done enough. Sometimes it's almost like reassuring that I could spend actually at home years now just working with this archive, finding images and putting them in the different context or cutting them out or doing things. It's just endless, really, if you think about it.
And of course, everyone's archives are growing more and more and more with all the electronic images just on your phone. I think everyone's got hundreds and thousands of photographs on their phone. It's just going to get worse and worse or better and better.
Well, because it's not going to become a physical archive. It was strange. We're not going to have those sort of family archives anymore because we all have too many photographs on our phones and we don't do anything with them.
I was listening to an interesting conversation about actually, and people, there are two guys talking about, do you come back, do you go back to your family archives, your photographs, but do you ever go back to the archives in digital form? And they saying that they usually go back to the archive they got in physical form, but they were wondering, is it because their age or, will people go back to their family archive in a digital way? I don't know.
Well, it's very difficult, isn't it? Because everybody's got images in one family on different phones. And
yes.
I do find it quite interesting because I have a Mac that every so often they bring up a series of memories from your photographs in a way that you wouldn't have necessarily. They choose a frame or whatever. I find that quite interesting sometimes when it comes up. I think, oh, I'd forgotten about that, or how they've juxtaposed certain images sort of in these random memories that come up. So I've saved them. I save those sometimes, but then that's another digital saving. So it's not doing anything.
I can see another question from Elizabeth about the photographer and the Edward Connold. You mean? You are muted, so
can I unmute myself? Hello. Yes. Yeah. Apologies if you did say this, but did you what was his reason for making this collection of photographs? Was it do you know what it was going to become?
Well,
sorry, and then the second part of the question was, in that, did you see anything where you found reasoning behind what he photographed and when?
He was fundamentally a naturalist, a botanist. So that was his interest. So he was doing it for quasi-scientific, because he wasn't he was a grocer, and he only started doing it properly when he inherited some money and he could stop being a grocer, basically.
Right.
And so he published a couple books. I've got one of his books. It's a really beautiful thing. It's Gleanings from the Fields of Nature.
Okay.
Yeah, and he walks around and he finds this, like a wasp, and he writes a chapter about the wasps in this naturalist way. So, but he was he was interested in gulls, the oak gulls, and apparently he actually contributed in science, because that was one of his books, but I didn't buy that one. And before he died quite early, I think he was 47, he was collecting and doing gathering the photographic material for his book that he wanted to publish, which was on wild fruit flowers, I think. So there's quite a lot of that.
Right.
Yeah, but that was the scientific interest.
So he had a bit of specialism going on. Yeah. Okay.
It's quite a tradition of Victorian amateur scientists. It was very important to just establish sort of lots of things like botany and what have you.
Absolutely. But
fossils.
Yeah, he photographed. There was another collector, apparently quite well known in Sussex. Can't remember his name now, but he collected sponges from around the world. So, for example, Connell photographed those sponges. So there's several photographs of the sponges on this constructed steps. Yeah, they're quite I'm quite taken by them, and they're in a really good state. Really. So I'm really kind of keen of getting them out, so people can look through the collection and see it. And also there's this thing that I'm guilty of this, that we are now nature blind. We can't really recognize the flowers. We can't know the difference. What's the difference between this one and this one? Even digitizing those, I know now more. I look at this. Oh, that must be the crab apple, and I'm just like, whoa, good one, because you kind of because you kind of look at those, and although it's probably better if you do it in nature, but yeah, so that's interesting how like same as botanical illustration. That's that's the leaf, that's the fruit, that's the flower, and what's the difference?
Right. I can't see the chat now. Sorry, I went and looked at that PDF.
It's back up there on the chat.
It's back on the chat now. I can't get the actual screen back up now. Anyway, but we are at 7:30, so I'm quite happy if we can carry on if there's any more questions in the chat, or anyone else has got any more questions.
I was just wondering, Aggie, did you say your work is going to be shown at Hastings Museum soon?
Yes, but that's just these 3, I think, pieces I've managed to do when I was on that residency last year. So I think Alice is putting them up somewhere. There was someone else in that residency, but I can't remember what artist. So she's just making a little vitrine with what we've created that over a year ago. Really, but
will you let us know when it's going to happen?
I will, yeah, because I was quite keen, because they printed obviously the fragments of the photograph of the photographs that I rephotographed. But it's nice it's going to be shown in the museum, because I can put them next to the original photograph.
Yeah.
So I found the photographs, and then that sort of fragment I've mended. It's going to be next to it, which I wouldn't be able to take out from the museum, so that's quite nice.
Oh, great.
So when you were for those pieces, when you did the ones with the I've forgotten the Japanese word beginning with the K, but when you were doing the mending with the gold, for example, you were obviously you didn't have your copy didn't have the ingrained broken areas, so you had to just work where it was as such. Did you sort of, you see what I mean?
I've sort of macro photographed the fragments that I quite liked and sort of enlarged the photographs, and yeah, but I've obviously worked on the re-photographed and printed out on paper.
Mm. Yeah, no, they look really beautiful. Those really nice. Okay,
I've enjoyed that. Yeah.
Any more questions from anybody, and we can.
I'm just wondering if you're planning to do more of that, Kensugi, you know, because you've got the images yourself, you could print them out and do a whole exhibition.
Yeah.
If that's something you carried on doing.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of, you know, I'm really looking to create my own work and put it next to Connell's work. That's what I'm really trying to, yes. But where I'm going, I have no idea.
Actually, I was going to ask about that somewhat in terms of the amount of time you must be spending on viewing and retrieving what's in the archives, and then how much time that compares to you can put into doing work yourself to create something quite new out of it.
Well, with the Connell's work, I've been mostly 30 days I spent in the museum with Connell's work. And whereas, do you know, if it wasn't the images, because very often they were in the, you know, unopened envelopes, I would be the person who would open it. Oh. And you go like, what? I know. And you go like, wow, you know, and you've got this 1907 on it, or 1903. And you taking it out from this envelope, and if it wasn't for the images, I would probably got bored with it. But every now and then you go on and go just like, wow, you know, this is really amazing. And it's that kind of, you know, that kind of idea of where that glass plate was, that a Polish artist, Lewczyński, he got into not even about the content of the image, but like, you know, this fingerprint, you know. Yeah. Or this, or like this little blurred hand, you know, on one of the images. Or he put up a mirror to put a better light on one side of the plant. And these little things, or like a pin, you could see a pin that he obviously pinned the plants into some sort of structure, so they are in a shape that he wanted. And these little things are really, really, you know, they gain my attention quite a lot. Yeah.
It's an endless resource.
I don't think. Yeah. Precisely. But that's why, you know, the more that's what I keep saying to them in the museum. You've got a little treasure there, because you could take out from it continuously, you know. Yeah, yeah. So yeah.
It's a lot
more.
So
we'll see.
Pictures of flowers, isn't it? I mean, it's just some, you know, the whole process.
Precisely.
How he created them, and then you look at them, and then going on from there, it's just layer upon layer of it.
Yeah, and just the fact that he was local, so, and he put where he found them. So you've got, like, you know, Alexandra Park, you've got Lewis, you've got Battle, you've got you know, Guestling Woods, and you kind of like, this is you know, he just Winchelsea, Camber Sands, and you got all this section of marine biology, and that's you know, everything that he found on the beach and things, and it's just like, wow, you know, it's amazing. He walked exactly on the same beach that we walk now, and he's done that.
We find a load of plastic plugins on.
Precisely, that's the sad thing about it. Yeah, but that's the beauty of the archive. That's yeah. That's what I like about the archives.
But if you hadn't gone along there and he hadn't had your interest, he would have remained hidden for goodness knows how long. Just
yes, it feels almost sometimes, but sometimes I think they look at me like I'm mad, you know, because they're kind of, I'm already gone back and got the funding, and I spent so much time doing things, and now I'm thinking of getting more funding and actually finishing this And I'm kind of like, this is good. This is really good. Look at this. And they're like, yeah, well, we're in a museum. There's plenty of good things, but yeah, I think that's.
I was just going to say, it might be interesting to contact the Garden Museum in London with this collection.
Oh, is there a garden museum? Yeah, I'm thinking of contact.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and they do like what you call small collections, especially obviously of plants and things, and they might be really interested in doing something.
Thank you, because what I'm trying to do really is put up the application, which is a beast, but I'm kind of want to take it on for the project grant for from Arts Council, basically as the end product to be an exhibition. But one step in it would be finishing digitizing and then production of the exhibition and exhibiting it. But the problem, the little problem is that I need 10% of match funding, and museum can't give it to me because they Arts Council funded. So Arts Council cannot match Arts Council, which makes sense. So I am going to put up the nice PDF with the best sort of cleared, slightly brushed out images. And I think I'm going to send it to a few institutions, asking not for much, can you chip in if I get the grant? Would you chip in £200?
Chelsea,
that sort of thing.
As well.
Chelsea, thank you.
Try funding. If we all give you a tenner, you might get quite a lot.
Well, this is the thing that in fairness for the match funding, I won't be looking for more than £2,000. So in fairness, if I spread it out for like 10 different institutions and have this, I'm kind of hoping that's doable.
And there's money in kind, isn't there? So you could do things for you.
Yeah, precisely.
Something or other.
I wondered, Aggie,
it's just
when you did your initial DYCP funding, and you obviously, I'm guessing, asked for 30 days of your time. Is that what as you've done the 30 days at the gallery, is whether what you had estimated you would get out, did you think you were going to go through the whole archive in that time, or did you just really...
No, it was purely 30 days of me being in a museum and, learning. But that's what I've learned, how to digitize it, how to do the object recording, how to catalog it. So that's, so then maybe I could in the future do similar thing in a different institution. So that was the aim. I wasn't focusing on Connell's collection because I didn't want to kind of make it too focused with that DYCP. With the project grant, yes, that will be for just the Connell's collection. But with DYCP, it was more because it is develop your creative practice. So it was about me learning how to handle and digitize the object.
Yeah, no, it sounds like you've done it a really good way around. The whole project of you've got a lot out of it yourself. You've got some new skills. And now you're going to...
Yes, yeah, and well, we'll see. It's just this the application form is a beast. I'm kind of there's it's a real beast. But on the other hand, I mean, we got to try. Yeah, so we'll see. But the good thing again with the archives is really there is no rush. In theory, as you said, they would have been in the store. They could be in the store for a bit longer.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think it's nearly 1:45. I think we ought to sort of stop there. It's been a really, really interesting talk and chat afterwards, Aggie. It was a really interesting project. So thank you for sharing with us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank
you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I think the resources you've given us, I think, are in a PDF, which is in the chat. And I think if not,
I'll put it on Facebook as well.
I'm not sure about putting it on Facebook because they're not. I think we should. Can we email everybody who?
Yeah, could
died? I think that might and attach
idea.
it to that. I think that might be a better thing. Don't
Yeah.
know what Maggie's research going out to all and sundry on.
Okay.
But
And if anybody wanted some more, everyone can Google. I would really recommend Googling Carmen Wine and listening to her talks. She's such a good talker. And the other thing I wanted to ask you, Steffi, if you could save the comments. I don't know how to do that. I don't know if I am able to do it, because I saw there some suggestions of the.
Yeah.
And if you could.
Well, I'll do that, and if at the end, I think I'll leave it open and see if I can do that.
It should be. I think when you
Save
go
chat.
and look,
Save
when
chat.
you go and look for your recording, it should save it. Yeah.
I don't know.
Thank you.
But it saved it somewhere.
Yeah, because did you see Judith? Judith suggested for funding, Aggie. Did you see her?
Well, yeah, but that's why I'm asking, because I just wanted to have it to go back to people, and with Judith there was another thing I wanted to ask her as well. So just if we could have it saved, then I'll put it all in. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
everybody.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Is everybody going?
Yeah, and I can find
Yeah,
that.
I'm just going to save the chat if I can.
Bye, everyone.
Is everybody gone?
Yeah.
Not quite.
Nice to see you all, anyway.
Yeah, nice to see you, Judy.
Catch up again
Still
soon.
trying to work out where the hell it saved the chat, Ray.
Thanks, Steph. Anyway, I don't even know how to get out of mine, but anyway, thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just in computer mode trying to work out where the hell it saved it. I don't know where it saved it.
I saw something that said save chat, and I don't know.
I found where it says it and I've pressed it, but nothing happens. Ray, do you know where it saves chat to?
Yeah. Oh, it's the three dots on the top.
Yeah, I found that.
Is it not doing it?
Too.
Yeah, but as long as it's on there, it'll save it.
I put save chat.
Yeah, that's all right.
But where does it go?
Well, I'll find it.
Okay.
I know where it is.
You'll find it.
It's on there.
Right. That was good.
Bye-bye.
See you. Okay, bye.
See you, Judy. Hello,
I
nice to see
can't
you.
close it, can I?
Thank you. Yeah, see you.
Of course you can close it.
Oh, yeah. So, end meeting for all new. Is it recording it still though? If I close it, will it stop the recording?
No, just stop the recording. Or you just close it. Stop.